Have you ever found yourself in a situation where someone disrespected you in front of a crowd? Maybe they cracked a joke about you, interrupted you mid-sentence, or just made you feel belittled in front of others. In that moment, you probably felt an immediate rush of emotions: embarrassment, frustration, maybe even anger. You were caught off guard, unsure whether to speak up, stay silent, or just walk away. But what if I told you that you don't have to feel powerless in these moments? The key to dealing with disrespect is not reacting impulsively, but instead responding in ways that command respect, instantly and effortlessly. This isn't about getting back at people or confronting them aggressively. It's about mastering certain psychological techniques and behaviors that put you in control of any situation, especially when someone tries to undermine you in front of others. From body language to verbal tactics, you'll learn how to handle disrespect with ease, leaving people thinking twice before they ever try to cross you again. But don't worry, we won't just talk about theory. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to behave when someone tries to ridicule you in public or in private. You'll have the psychological tools to gain respect from anyone, whether it's a colleague, a friend, or even a family member who seems to never acknowledge your worth. 1. Why people disrespect you. Before diving into the specific techniques that will help you regain respect, it's crucial to first understand why people disrespect others in the first place. The truth is, most of the time, the disrespect isn't personal. It's not about whether they like or dislike you specifically. In fact, much of the time, it's about power, status, and social dynamics. Some people thrive on making others feel small because it boosts their own sense of self-worth. This is particularly common in competitive environments, whether at work, in social settings, or even in family structures. When someone cracks a joke at your expense or interrupts you constantly, it's not necessarily because they're trying to hurt you. It's often because they see an opportunity to elevate themselves by putting you down. In group settings, there's a psychological phenomenon where people want to show they're superior to others. Making a snide comment, belittling someone, or interrupting their flow of conversation can all be subtle ways for people to feel in control. By doing this, they think they're asserting dominance, whether they're conscious of it or not. This behavior isn't limited to just toxic coworkers or rude acquaintances. It can happen in any type of relationship, from friends to family members, where one person tries to establish a position of higher value. They may test your boundaries to see what they can get away with. Understanding this psychology behind their actions is the first step in regaining your own power in these situations. When you recognize that it's about them trying to gain control, it becomes easier to respond without taking it personally. After all, this isn't about you failing to measure up. It's about them trying to prop themselves up at your expense. So, how can you stop this cycle and ensure you don't fall victim to their attempts to belittle you? The next section dives into how to establish respect from the very first interaction. How's this one? Ready to move to the next section? 2. First impressions, the silent power move. The saying, "you never get a second chance to make a first impression," is more than just a cliche. It's a psychological truth. When you meet someone for the first time, they'll judge you within moments, sometimes before you even open your mouth. And what's interesting is that these judgments are often based not on what you say, but on how you say it. Your body language, tone of voice, and eye contact all play a role in shaping how people perceive you from the very start. Think about it. When you approach someone to greet them, what's the first thing you do? Do you stand tall, extend your hand confidently, and look them directly in the eye? Or do you stay seated, avoid direct eye contact, and offer a limp handshake? It might seem like small details, but these are the moments that immediately signal how you expect to be treated. One of the most important aspects of a first impression is body language, and the way you position yourself physically can either elevate your status or put you in a submissive position. If you're seated and someone else is standing, you automatically put yourself at a disadvantage. You may not even realize it, but your body is telling them that you're in a lesser position. On the flip side, when you stand up to greet someone, it shows confidence and self-assurance. It signals that you're on equal footing and ready to engage with them on the same level. Another subtle yet powerful part of the greeting process is eye contact. When you look someone directly in the eye during an introduction, you're saying, I am confident in who I am, and I'm not afraid to make a connection. Avoiding eye contact, on the other hand, can make you seem insecure or evasive. Eye contact is also a form of unspoken communication. When you establish that connection from the beginning, it creates an immediate sense of trust and mutual respect. And let's not forget about the handshake itself. If you offer a limp, weak handshake, it's like telling the other person that you're not sure of yourself. On the other hand, a firm handshake gives the impression that you're confident, reliable, and in control. A lot can be said with just a handshake, and making sure yours is strong and deliberate sets the tone for the interaction to come. The bottom line? First impressions are made in seconds, and the way you present yourself during that brief moment can have lasting effects on how people treat you. But as you'll see, it's not just about the first meeting. It's about the way you continue to assert respect as the conversation progresses. 3. How to handle interruptions. Establishing boundaries. We've all been there. You're in the middle of speaking, making a point, or telling a story, and suddenly someone interrupts you. Maybe they cut you off mid-sentence or try to dominate the conversation with their own thoughts. It's frustrating, isn't it? But what if I told you that how you respond to interruptions can make all the difference in how people perceive you, and more importantly, how they respect you? Interruptions are not just a social faux pas, they're a subtle challenge to your authority in the conversation. It's like the other person is saying, what I have to say is more important than what you're saying. And when you let that slide without addressing it, it reinforces the idea that your voice isn't as valuable as theirs. That's why it's crucial to set clear boundaries when someone tries to interrupt you. The first step? Stay calm. It may be tempting to react immediately with frustration or anger, but that's exactly what they want. They want to throw you off, to make you feel flustered. Instead, take a deep breath and hold your ground. One of the most powerful things you can do in the face of an interruption is to simply stop talking. When you abruptly go silent and maintain eye contact with the person who interrupted you, you're sending a clear message. This conversation is not a free-for-all. I was speaking, and now it's my turn again. Next, if the interruption persists, assert yourself politely but firmly. Use a calm yet direct tone and say something like, "Excuse me, but can I finish what I was saying?" This isn't just a request. It's a clear statement that you won't tolerate being silenced or ignored. You're reinforcing your position in the conversation and showing that you won't let anyone overpower you. Remember, you don't have to raise your voice or get aggressive to make an impact. In fact, raising your voice or showing frustration can make you appear less composed, which ultimately gives the interrupter more power. A simple, unblinking stare, followed by a polite but firm request, can often stop them in their tracks. Interestingly, you'll find that most people will back off when you assert yourself in this way. They'll either become self-conscious about their behavior or realize that they can't continue without your consent. And in the long run, they'll learn to respect your time, your words, and your space in the conversation. This kind of boundary setting is not only important in professional or social settings, but also in personal relationships. Establishing that you won't allow others to dominate or interrupt you creates a healthy foundation for mutual respect. 4. Dealing with humiliation, turning the tables. Have you ever been the target of a joke or a comment that was meant to embarrass you, especially in front of others? Whether it's a snide remark from a colleague or a joke from a friend, these moments can sting. But the truth is, how you respond can turn the situation around in your favor. Rather than reacting defensively or showing that you've been affected, there's a simple yet highly effective psychological technique that can help you regain control of the situation. When someone cracks a joke at your expense, the natural reaction might be to either laugh it off, retaliate, or even stay silent, feeling humiliated. However, the key here is to not let the joke land the way the person intended. If you immediately show that you've been hurt or offended, you give them power. But if you act as if their joke didn't affect you, you'll quickly take away their ammunition. Here's the trick. Pretend you didn't hear the joke or don't understand it. Instead of reacting in the moment, simply look at the person who made the joke and ask them to repeat it. You can say something like, "Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Could you repeat that for me?" This may seem counterintuitive, but trust me, it works. When you ask them to repeat their joke, it forces them into an awkward situation. The reason this works so well is that it removes the power they had in making you feel small. They were expecting a reaction, but now they're the ones who have to deal with the discomfort of repeating themselves. And let's be real, jokes, especially those aimed at putting someone down, rarely have the same impact the second time around. The awkwardness can become too much for them to bear, and they may even start to feel self-conscious about what they said. But here's the most important part of this technique. You stay calm and composed. You don't react emotionally, and you certainly don't let their words throw you off. Instead, you take control of the situation, forcing them to second-guess their behavior. By refusing to be affected, you're sending a clear message. Your attempt to humiliate me doesn't faze me. In fact, it's making you look bad. This not only shifts the power dynamic, but also helps you maintain your dignity. And over time, people will learn not to mess with you because they'll realize that their attempts to belittle you won't get the reaction they're looking for. It's a subtle, yet highly effective way of protecting your self-respect and ensuring that others respect you as well. 5. Responding to provocation, redirecting the energy. At some point, everyone has encountered someone who tries to provoke them, whether through harsh comments, attempts to anger, or simply by trying to get under their skin. The natural instinct in these situations is to respond in kind, either by defending yourself, arguing back, or showing your frustration. But while it may feel satisfying in the moment, reacting emotionally rarely leads to the desired outcome. In fact, it can often escalate the situation, making you seem more vulnerable to further provocation. So, what's the solution? One of the most powerful psychological techniques to deal with provocation is to redirect the conversation entirely. When someone is attempting to provoke you, the goal is to shift the focus away from them and their disruptive behavior, essentially rendering their actions irrelevant. And the best way to do that is by asking a question or making a comment that's completely out of context. Imagine someone is trying to make you angry by insulting you or questioning your decisions. Instead of getting defensive, you might calmly ask, "Do you know a good place to grab coffee nearby?" Or, "I think I might have worn too much perfume today. Don't you think?" This may sound odd, but it's an incredibly effective way to throw the other person off balance. They were expecting a fight, a reaction, or for you to get upset, but instead, you respond with something entirely unrelated. It's like hitting the pause button on their attempt to provoke you. By doing this, you're not only diffusing the situation, but you're also showing them that their efforts to provoke you are futile. It also subtly signals that you have control over the conversation and that you won't engage in any drama or negativity. This unexpected response forces the other person to reconsider their behavior. They'll either feel awkward about their provocation or have no choice but to back off because you're no longer playing into their game. It's important that your response feels natural, though. If you act as though you're intentionally trying to derail the conversation, they might catch on. But if you respond as if you genuinely thought of something unrelated, it disrupts their flow without raising suspicion. The more natural you can make it, the more effective this tactic becomes. Redirecting the energy in this way makes you appear calm, unbothered, and in control. You're sending the message that their attempts to get a rise out of you won't work. Over time, this will lead to people realizing that provoking you is a waste of their energy. And just like with the other strategies, it helps solidify your reputation as someone who can't be easily manipulated or baited into unnecessary conflict. 6. Walking away. The power of knowing when to exit. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in the face of disrespect is to simply walk away. It might seem counterintuitive. After all, isn't standing your ground a sign of strength? While it's true that asserting yourself in the moment is crucial, there are times when the best course of action is to remove yourself from the situation entirely. Walking away doesn't mean giving up or conceding defeat. In fact, it's a strategy that can command even more respect than engaging in a pointless battle. When you walk away from a situation, you're showing that you value your peace and your dignity more than the conflict at hand. You're making it clear that you won't tolerate disrespect, but rather than fighting back with words or anger, you're choosing to remove yourself from an environment that doesn't serve you. This can be incredibly powerful, especially when the other person or people expect you to stick around and engage. By walking away, you assert that you won't waste your time on individuals who don't appreciate you. The key here is understanding when to walk away. This isn't about avoiding difficult conversations or letting people treat you however they want. Instead, it's about recognizing when a situation has devolved to the point where engaging further would only harm you. If someone is repeatedly disrespecting you, and it's clear that they're not open to changing their behavior, continuing to engage only lowers your value in their eyes. But by walking away, you preserve your self-respect, and in doing so, you elevate your standing. Another powerful aspect of walking away is that it forces others to reconsider their actions. When someone disrespects you, and you immediately choose to exit the situation, they're left with the uncomfortable realization that their behavior had consequences. Often, this is enough to make them pause and reconsider how they treat you in the future. In essence, walking away shows that you have control over your own actions and that your time and energy are too valuable to waste on negativity. Walking away is also about setting boundaries. It's a form of self-care that prioritizes your mental and emotional well-being. By knowing when to walk away, you create space for better relationships and more positive environments. You're telling people that you have standards and you won't allow anyone to treat you in a way that diminishes your worth. And let's not forget, walking away doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't require shouting or making a big scene. Sometimes the most powerful exits are the quiet ones, when you simply stand up, leave, and let your absence speak louder than any words ever could. It's a subtle but effective way to protect your peace and demand respect without ever needing to say a word.